up here. Let's get the music turned down. Let's get Joe opened up. Joe Chacho, we got you loud and clear on the podcast, man. How are you doing this morning?
Good morning, good morning. I feel like a doggone rock star hearing that music there, so if you want to put it back on to get everybody fired up, let's crank it up. Let's do it.
Yeah,
good morning.
It's awesome. Good morning, and we know you got a busy schedule, lots of people reaching out to you each and every day, lots of people to talk to, and like all of our guests, we really appreciate you putting some time aside for us. And we're just going to have that conversation that you and I have probably had quite a few different times, but so many people want to get to know those names that they see, on the leaderboard that are up in lights. And this is a great platform to be able to do that. So once again, we appreciate you spending some time with us. We can go ahead and get right into it. Off to an awesome start already this year. Off to an awesome start this year, and then you're closing it out already. And once again, another year well over $5 million from what we're seeing. What's shaking over at the Chacho crew? You guys are just absolutely killing it over there.
Chase, the way I sit and look at it is that, I can take some of the credit, but yet the credit I have goes out to all the agents out there, as you call boots on the ground, who are out there actually hustling and actually knocking on doors. And what I've learned over the years is that if I can give agents that work with me the tools that they need, give them the mentorship that they need, and coach them in the right direction, I feel that they'll all be successful. What I've seen over the years, a lot of agents want to kind of reinvent the wheel. They want to do it a different way. And I tell them, I said, listen, if you want to be top of the list, follow the leader. So it's just constant repetition of going over and over things to where agents will sink in. They'll understand when it comes to a certain illness, go to a certain carrier. When it comes to height and weight, where to go. So it's a learning process that is a constant job for me as well as the managers and the agents that work with all of us.
Absolutely, and I know that your phones are always ringing. You're always jumping on and helping somebody. A lot of times when you or I are on a conference call or we're just having a conversation about something, say, hey, let me give you a call back. So-and-so's in a home. They need help. And that's one thing that I've always, over the years, I've always known about you, is that you will jump in immediately. So let's kind of take a peek behind the curtain a little bit for those that, maybe are out there in podcast land that aren't with Ephes or affiliated with us, or those that are with us and they see the name. But it's funny whenever we go to an event, like when we had the road show, you flew in, we had you as one of our guests. There were so many people that were like, oh man, that's Joe Chacho. I've heard him on conference calls. I've seen him on the leaderboard. Let's go back in time. Let's jump in the time machine here. Talk about a little bit about when you first got into the business. When did you get started in the life insurance business?
Well, howdy. You're going back in memory land now. I got my license back in 94, and I actually started in probably January of 97. One of my dear friends, Scott May, got me hooked up with two gentlemen. Never forget these guys, Charles Williams and Forrest Riddle, got me hooked up doing mortgage protection. And started doing that there, and I didn't want to work nights because I came from a business where I had to work nights and weekends. And I did that for a while, and it's a learning curve no matter what insurance you go through. So my brother Jimmy introduced me to a gentleman named by Jamie Solano, and these names stick in my mind because these are the people that kind of pushed me forward to learn this stuff here and gave me an opportunity. And he kind of took me and introduced me to Final Expense. And I worked with him at a free lead program under him, learned from him, taught from him, and then when I decided to cut the cords, I decided to drop my own mail. So I started dropping my own mail, 1,000-piece mail. And what happens is that I thought I knew how to drop mail, but I wasn't dropping enough mail, wasn't in the right area, wasn't doing the right demographics. So in January of 05, Eric sent out a bunch of mailers. I happened to respond to it, and the opportunity was there. He told me I can do this for you. And what happens a lot of times, Chase, is that we look at our commission. We don't look at the overall compensation program. And I took a hit in commissions to come work with you guys, but I sat and looked at the overall thing of what he was going to offer me, the lead program, exactly how it worked, the behind-the-scenes staff, underwriting help that you guys could offer me. And that was the beginning of a very exciting future that I've had with you guys now going on 14 years, and earned the rank of being a regional sales director, which to me that's just a title. I'll put my pants on just like everybody else, and I just enjoy helping agents become more successful. And that's kind
So you got started
the
in
short
mortgage.
version.
Yeah, and I remember you and I talked about this quite a bit. You got started in mortgage protection. For everybody out there, this is one of my favorite questions to ask during our interactions on the podcast, but I have to ask it. What was your first impression of when you first got into the business, both from, just wow, this is what this is, and also just from a, work ethic standpoint, what it takes to be successful. What was your first impression of the business?
Well, doing mortgage protection and even filing expense was kind of like a culture shock, because I worked with my father for as a young old age, and I used to get a paycheck every week. Every week I got X amount of dollars. If I needed to borrow $50, go on the register, put I owe you $50. But yet, when you're out there working commission only, what happens is that you think you're smarter than everybody else, and you really don't want to follow the lead. There's a guy that used to work there, and he used to set his appointments on Sunday from 4 until 7. I said, why are you doing it on Sunday from 4 to 7? Man, you ought to be watching the football games or out hanging out with your friends. He said, Joe, this is where is the best time for me to make money. People are home from church. They're home for lunch. They're watching the ball game, and I can normally catch them there. So I listened to him, and I always got upset when they used to give him 15, 20 leads a week, and they gave me 2 or 3. And I said, man, how am I going to learn? And what it was, I was the new guy on the program. Back then, you got free leads at a reduced commission. And it was culture shock, to answer your question. Really didn't believe I could make the amount of money that they told me by just going out, visiting with people, telling the story, letting them know that I'm there to protect their family in the event something happened to them, the disability riders, and all the other bells and whistles that came with the mortgage protection. So it was kind of unbelievable that I could make as much money as they said. I made a couple sales, made a couple policies, and from right then and there, Chase, in my mind, I bought a villa in Italy. I bought a condominium on the beach. I bought another car. I was going to buy a doggone airplane, because in my mind it was unlimited, because all you got to do is just work. And what happens a lot of times with agents that I've seen over the years is that they'll go out and work Monday and Tuesday, make a couple, 3 sales. They're rich, and they take the rest of the week off. And then the end of the week or the beginning of the next week, they're suicidal because a client was declined or a client decided to cancel. And what I've learned is that you have to have a plan, and you need to follow it every day. I believe in having an actual daily worksheet with times written down on who you're going to see, how you're going to see them, make phone calls to carriers, have like an actual roadmap on everything every day, because that's going to keep you in track. Because when you work for yourself, we all tend to kind of veer to the left and veer to the right. So since I worked with my father and we did a lot of different things, what happened is that I learned how to manage people, I learned how to manage the books, learn how to manage money. And what happens, what I've seen with a lot of agents, is that they're not managing the money the way they should. They just think, well, I'm going to make money today and I'm not going to worry about it. I think you need to put money off to the side for leads. You need to put money off to the side for chargebacks. And then you need to have your operating capital just to run your household with your family. So that's kind of my quick version again.
I love it. I love it. And that actually segues directly into one of the things I wanted to go over next and ask you about was, talking about, goals. As we transition from your first impressions of the business and we kind of get into, when you first got going in the business, talk about a little bit about what your initial goal was compared to now. And I think of a gentleman who we see at the top of the leaderboard consistently now, by the name of Chris Smith. Chris talks about mastering the mundane. He and I talked about that a little bit, and the success is achieved one day at a time, as you mentioned. Just go out there, put your boots on today, go make today happen, and keep doing that over and over, repetition, over and over and over. As the phrase goes, the devil's in the details. Tell me a little bit about your goals when you first got into the business, and then we'll progress into goals that you still set for yourself today as an agency owner.
When I started out, Chase, I just wanted to make a sale. I didn't care whether it was a $5 sale or $100. I just wanted to make a sale. And what I'll sit and tell you is that the first sale I made, I had a manager work with me. His name was Ron Cunningham. And again, names just stick in my mind because these people influenced me throughout all my years of growing in the insurance business. Made my first sale, walked out of the house, drove away, and I forgot I didn't have a signature signed there. So I had to turn back around. I told the people, listen, it's a brand new application. I didn't dare tell them that I was a green pea, didn't know nothing about it. He made the presentation. He kind of closed it. I just filled out the application. Went back to the house, had him sign it. 2 days later, around 6:30 in the morning, my phone rings, and back then there was no caller ID, or if it was, I didn't have it. And it's only my dad calling me, say, "Hey, what's going on? How was business? You make any money?" And it was this lady calling me, telling me, "Joe, how you doing? We just left my house, and we kind of want to cancel it. We're going to go with our credit union because they got a better program. It's less expensive." So the definition of deer in headlights, what a way to start a morning off at 6:30 with a client canceling it on you, and I didn't know what to do or how to save it, or do I go back to their house? Do I do it on the phone? Do I go with my manager? So I was what you call devastated. So I said to myself, this is something that I cannot afford to happen because I already used that money to buy something else, like the villa in Italy. So what happened is that I said to myself, my goal number one is to write an application and make sure it sticks on the business. Make sure it sticks on the business line. My second goal, Chase, was to make 1 to 2 sales a week because I knew I was new. I knew I wasn't going to set the world on fire because I had no knowledge on how the definition of a close. I didn't know how to ask for a check. I didn't know how to overcome objections. So for me, it was a learning process, yet I had the will and the desire that I was going to succeed no matter what it took. If that meant working 7 days a week, 24 hours a day, nothing was going to stop me because I was like a locomotive train going down that straightaway, and I said, I am going to do whatever. As time went on, I set myself up to make 3 sales a week, 4 sales a week, and I really didn't sit and say, well, I want to have this much premium because I really didn't know about higher premiums equal higher commission, higher bank account. My thought was is just to make sales that were good and did whatever I can to have them stick on the books. After I got going and I got into final expense and I was getting more leads, I used to set my goals back then, and this has been like over 20 years ago. I wanted to do at least $2,000 a week in annualized premium. That was a goal I had back then because I think I had a 50-point contract. I'd make myself $1,000. I thought I was the richest guy in the whole world. So I said, okay, let me kind of do this here. And as time goes on and you start learning the business and you start having more confidence in what you do, you start learning how to knock on the house next door, you take the next level to ask for referrals, then I set my goal. I think I had it at $3,000 or $3,500. Towards the end of me being on the streets, getting leads, my goal was $5,000 a week in annualized premiums. That was a goal that I had set for myself every single week. So what I will tell for anybody new out there, anybody out there that has a goal, whatever your goal is, you need to work a little bit longer at nighttime, knock on an extra door, make an extra phone call. And if you say, I'm only going to work 4 days a week, you need to throw that in the trash and say, I got to work 6 days a week, whatever it takes, because once you get that taste of success, and once you feel that you have the confidence to overcome objections and you're going to do whatever it takes to make those sales, the actual horizon opens up for you. And what ends up happening when you're visiting with a client, you'll actually become more comfortable. You'll start slowing down in the way you speak. You will not come across as what we already all know is something called commission breath because you got a car payment. My goal early on was to make 1 sale every day in the morning for $10. Just make 1 sale. And believe it or not, just that 1 application in my briefcase gave me the relaxed feeling that whenever I went out for the rest of the day, I already had an application, already made a sale, didn't think about the commission, okay? Because I knew that having that application in my briefcase gave me the strength and gave me the wherewithal to sit and say, it's game time. Goals are very, very important. And the thing about it is that a lot of times people like to veer from the goal. They like to deviate. This is why I believe you have to have a schedule every day of what you got to do with some numbers on there, either how many doors you're going to knock on, annualized premium you're going to get, if you're going to increase your average premium from 40 to 50, 50 to 70, whatever it is. Keep track of these things here because that's going to be a temperature gauge for you to let you know where you're doing well at and where you need help at. Chase.
And as we kind of progress, that's a great point. And one of the things I want to kind of add on to that goes along with, you evolve as your career evolves, and as you obviously get better and you move down the line, your goals change. You enhance your skill set, your goals are going to change. And so that was actually one of the reason I was throwing that out there, is kind of seeing how you've progressed over the years. You went from an unbelievable top producer with us to a fantastic leader. Things change. In our mindset, our vision changes, and that means our goals change. Tell me this, one thing that I love to throw out there as we're doing the In the Trenches podcast each Friday, one thing I love to ask, and this is a great one to ask to somebody like yourself who's been in the game a long time. Bad habits. It's something that we hear talked about quite a bit. Man, when I first got in the business, I was doing this, and once I made the switch, man, it just changed everything. First, yes. What bad habit had you in the business, back in the day that you corrected that made a big difference? But then also, what do you suck at right now that you just try and get better at? What's the weakness or the area that you're working on now that you just get better at?
Chase, I worked out a lot of my bad habits working with my father and my uncle. And what happened is that they used to whoop me. They used to hold me to a higher standard. My brothers and my cousin, they held us to a higher standard than their employees because we were their children. And whatever we did reflected on them. So whenever I messed up, either I got a butt chewing or I got penalized somehow or another. So when I started in the insurance business, the only person I had to answer to was me. And I wanted my father to be proud of me of what I had done, because I left working with him to go on to a totally virgin territory I'd never done before. And I knew the things I had to do. I knew I had to ask for referrals. I knew I had to knock on my houses next door. I knew I had to work more days. So me working more days and more hours, that to me was no problem, because I used to work 6 days a week, a good 12 to 15 hours a day because of the type business I was in. What I always had to work on was asking for referrals. I get to a point to say, well, this lady probably doesn't know nobody, or it's not a good time. I don't feel comfortable doing it. That was one of my biggest things to overcome. And the second thing to overcome was just to do, as Jack Skaggs says, the clover leafing, just to go around the neighborhood and knock on doors. Knock on the 2 houses next to you, the 3 houses across the street, called the I formation or the T formation. That is something that was challenging for me forever. But yet what made it easier and easier and easier is that when I went out there and I asked for a referral and people gave it to me and I actually made sales, or I knocked on the house next door, to use the excuse, you probably sent this card in, I haven't gotten it yet, you have a couple seconds to spend with me now. And when people were receptive to me and they let me in and I made sales either on the door knocking or the referrals, what happens, it kind of takes that fear away. Because what ends up happening with anything is that it's the fear you're going to be of rejection. I don't need it. I don't want it. Because in our business, no has got to be your favorite word. Because you're going to get doggone 70% no's and 30% yeses. And you think about it, that's a 30% close. And as a professional baseball player who actually is out there doing his thing, if he does and hits 300 for the year, this guy is a professional. The other 7 times he strikes out, flies out, grounds out, whatever. So in my mind, I said, okay, I've got to get myself going. I've got to have a positive attitude, and I need to always do these things here. Because the guys I was working with back then did the door knocking. They did the actual knocking on the houses next door. They called people, but yet they door knocked. Back in the old days, it was only door knocking. You didn't call nobody. And they asked for referrals. So I said to myself, if I want to take myself and my checking account to the next level, these are the things I have to do. Because back then I was working on a free lead program. The guy's not going to give me 10 extra leads because I was a nice guy. He told me, Joe, work those leads there. Work harder. There were weeks, Chase, where he told me he had no mail. Joe, no mail has come back. You got to work those old leads. And I used to get frustrated at him. Used to get frustrated. His name is David K. Daniels. He's in Richmond, Virginia. This guy was definitely a true role model to me. They used to send me the actual lead card itself. So me being the rocket scientist genius I am, I used to turn the leads over. I said, that doggone son of a gun was holding these leads on me. He was not giving it to me. So after time goes on, I didn't get mad at him. I understood what he was doing. What happens if the lead's not good, you know you're getting 20 more, you throw it in the trash. I don't care. I'm not going to worry about it. But yet, he probably had some cost involved in those leads. He had to answer to people above him on those leads. So what I did was that I just worked harder. I worked smarter. I knew I was only going to get X amount of leads per week. So if I wanted to make more, I had to do things that were not lead related. It was just having guts. I talked about on one of my calls about maybe 2 months ago, the chicken list. Everybody has a chicken list. And I heard that a long, long time ago, and it kind of forgot about it. And probably about 3 or 4 months ago, I was listening to somebody, and they brought that up again. And everybody has a chicken list. And what a chicken list is, think about it. What do you think a chicken list possibly could be? I thought of food. That's the first thing that came to my mind, okay? Chicken lists are the things that you're afraid to do, the fears that you have, a goal that you want to accomplish, but you're unsure how to do it. You're not confident in yourself. You got to have guts in what we do. So I had on my chicken list a long time ago, knocking on the doors next door, asking for referrals, and canvassing neighborhoods. That petrified me. Now, for me to walk up to a door and knock on a door with a lead, I got all the guts in the world. Once I decided that I had to start knocking some of these things off of my chicken list, and I saw that I was being chicken for no other reason than just being afraid, once I overcame that fear and said, I'm the man, I'm number one, nothing's going to stop me, I'm going to be the best of the best. When you start getting that doggone mental process in your brain, what happens is that your brain protects you from fear. Your brain's going to tell you, don't ride that close to the curb because you may hit it. Your brain protects you. So what ends up happening, you got to have a talk with yourself. Look yourself in the mirror and say, today's the day. Today I'm going to make changes to become more successful. Yes, I'm going to be a little afraid. Yes, I'm going to be a little bit scary. Yet I am going to accomplish this today. And the only person you're talking to is yourself. You look in the mirror, the only person hearing you is yourself. So if you really, really want to become more successful, you need to tell somebody about these goals and tell that person what you're going to do. Because now you're afraid they're going to ask you, how's it going? What did you do? Did you accomplish those goals there? So as a winner, by telling somebody, you don't want to come across and say, well, I didn't do it, I was afraid, today was a rainy day. Holding yourself accountable to doing the things that were on your chicken list and getting guts, because now you can do some bragging on what you've done. And what that does, now you get a positive affirmation from somebody that smiles at you, gives you a pat on the butt and all that stuff there. I remember as a kid when I played ball, when I came around third base and that coach gave you a little pop on the butt when you came around, there was no bigger charge than that as a kid. Money meant nothing to me. But having somebody saying you did a great job, Joe, I'm proud of you, Joe, you're the best of the best, we really like working with you, those are the things that excite me about what I do and where I've come from. Chase?
I love it. I love it, Joe, and that covered so much more than the original question, but it was perfect. And so as we move along the line here, talking about those bad habits, talking about how we progress and we evolve, let's talk about, you mentioned this a little bit, so it probably won't be, it's probably a little bit of a redundant question, but I'm going to ask it anyway just to keep the flow going. The importance of the routine. We stress this in all of the trainings that we do. I know you do as well. The importance of having that daily, that weekly, that every single moment routine that we don't have to document after we do it over and over and over, and it just becomes our day. It becomes our routine. Let's talk about how important that is. I know that you train a lot of new producers to make sure that they get that routine in place. Tell me a little bit about your thoughts on that.
Okay. I think routine is a learned process, has a lot to do with what you've learned in the past. To me, a routine becomes muscle memory. Yet, as I said earlier, you need to have some type of plan of attack. When you have a routine and you have muscle memory, what it's going to do is that it's going to keep you on track. When I'm on some of these calls, my ADD kicks in, my OCD kicks in, and I start going left and I go right. So if I'm on a conference call of my own, I need to have the stuff written down in front of me because I've caught myself veering. When you're in a home, a lot of times agents start just talking. They start babbling. They just start rambling over things that are just, why are you saying this stuff here? So to me, if you're an agent in a home, you need to have some type of table of contents. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do this. If the client says this, I'm going to go here. You have to have some type of routine written down in front of you until you learn how, when you're going out in left field, to bring yourself back in. When it comes to running leads, you got to have a schedule. If you quit us and you go work, let's say, at McDonald's, you go work at some big chain, you got a boss telling you, okay, Joe, you got to be work at 8 o'clock. You're going to do this, this, and this. You take a break at 10:30 for 15 minutes. Then from there, your lunch is from 12:30 till 1. Come back, you got a break at 3:45. You got off work today at 5, and there's no overtime. So you have somebody overseeing you, and they're telling you what to do. So for us to be successful, we got to be the employee, we got to be the employer, and we also have to be a student, okay? You've got to always be learning. You always got to be wanting to learn, and you always got to be telling yourself what to do. By having a roadmap and having the muscle memory on a regular basis will take you to a level that you never thought you could ever get to.
I love it. And as we kind of progress as well, the next thing I love to throw out there when we have these conversations, not to go back down memory lane, but now we're going to talk about kind of lessons learned. You know, having been in the business as long as you have, what is the biggest lesson that you've learned the hard way? You know, from the day you got started until now, what would you throw out there as the biggest lesson you've learned?
This business is not easy. It's not hard. It's not easy. To me, it's a very challenging business. I've had agents call me and said, yeah, Joe, I've done this here. I did 200 Medicare Advantage programs, and I'm a great salesperson. I look at them, and I can't show no disrespect. Yet, what happens is that if you do not know how to ask for a check, okay, what ends up happening is that things kind of go haywire. You need to always be focused. Chase, right now my mind slipped. What was your question again? It just shows you how my ADD kicked in.
Just the biggest lesson you've personally learned. Okay.
Biggest lesson I've learned is that the only thing that I'm going to be successful at is the lessons that I've learned when I was young. It is the foundation of where I've been and where I want to go. The lessons I've learned is that I hear a lot of people on the phone saying, Joe, I'm going to do this, and Joe, I'm going to do that there. And what ends up doing, they end up not doing what they say they're going to do. The most lesson that I think I've learned is that I do want to put trust in people. I do want to trust the managers that work with me. I want to trust the agents that work with me. And what ends up happening is that the lesson I've learned is that the harder I work with them, the harder that I work together with these agents, what I've seen over the years is that these agents have prospered into making a whole lot more money just by listening and hearing the problems I had, the things where I messed up at, and just coaching them in a proper way.
I love it. I love it. And then to close the podcast out, you know, one of the questions we love to kind of throw out there for everybody is, if you are sitting in front of, and you pretty much are right now, you've got people out in podcast land, you got people on the call who are totally new, totally green to the business. If you had someone who was brand new looking to get started, what would be your number one piece of advice to throw out there to them?
Okay. I have agents that call me, and I tell them you need to work with a manager who knows what they're doing. And what I do, Chase, again, I have like a roadmap for them. Depends on what their background is, if they've had any sales experience, if they had any closing experience. I'm going to sit and tell them, listen to what the manager is telling you. I don't want you to hear them. I want you to listen to it. I want you to digest it. I want you to taste it. And I want you to feel it in your stomach. Because what happens is that this manager is here to help you. He's not here to do anything other than to coach you in the right way, push you in the right way, and give you advice to where you can become successful. You need to follow what successful people do. What I've seen over the years is everybody wants to reinvent the wheel. They want to do it their way because they feel that's their claim to fame. To me, when I look at our leaderboard and I look at the agents that work with us, that comes from hard work and watching what other people do. I've got no problem following on somebody's coattail, maybe tweaking what they say, maybe making a couple changes. Again, I said you have to be a student in the business. You've always got to want to learn. Follow the manager, follow me, follow the leader, and most importantly, 3 words. I have to count them out. 3 words. Go to work. You're not going to make money sitting at home watching Jerry Springer. You're not going to make money in the afternoon washing clothes. You need to go to work, and there's going to be a learning curve. You're going to want to jump off a bridge. When I first started in the business, my dear, dear friend Henry, who works for United Healthcare, him and I worked together for a long period of time. And when we first started, we were totally green to the insurance business. I was in the life, he was in the health. Him and I were going to take some one-way ticket trips to the Empire State Building and just jump, because what happened, it just wasn't coming to us as easy as what we expected. When you're doing something for years and years and years, you've gone through dilemmas, you've gone through the ups and downs, and things become easy. When you change to insurance or you change to final expense, it's a niche market that you have to know how to read the people, and you have to understand how seniors think. And what ends up happening is that if you're not willing to learn, you're not willing to put what I call a sweat equity into learning underwriting, overcoming objections, getting things off your chicken list, getting more guts, those are the things that I feel will prevent you from succeeding, and they'll also give you advantages on making more money and being happier in the final expense market.
Good stuff. Well, Joe, as always, I'll say again, man, we really, really appreciate you spending some time with us today. It was awesome having you on, and we really appreciate you spending some time, bud.
Okay, thank you. Good luck to everybody. Hit them hard. And remember, if you have a manager, call them, reach out, because their goal is to help you succeed, because it helps you and it also helps them. So with that said, everybody have a great weekend, and thanks for the opportunity, Chase.